All right, Ashley, thanks so much. Well, President Obama takes the stage before a packed house in New York for the NAACP's 100th anniversary. The president offering tough talk on the economic challenges, especially record unemployment facing the African-American community. But the president contended that while the government must continue working for equality, individuals must take charge of their own futures. I want to welcome back Marshawn Evans, the founder of the corporate consulting firm ME Unlimited, and DaRayl Davis is the founder of Financial Assurance. He attended the NAACP speech last night, and our Fox Business contributor and WStreet.com founder Charles Payne, who was also here yesterday. Good morning, guys. Good to see you all. DaRayl, we had a very heated and passionate conversation with Charles and Marshawn yesterday, and Michael Steele, who was here at the time, who couldn't join us this morning, the RNC chairman. But you were at the speech last night. Before we get into some of the emotions and what he said, what was it like being there? What did he achieve?
You know, I think it was a record setting in the sense that it's the 100th centennial, and of course we have our first African-American president, but people were just highly excited and emotional about the fact that the president was there, and just the milestone that his presidency has marked. And I think it's marked a era of progress, although there's still challenges that we're faced with. But he achieved I think a clarification of how we need to see things moving forward as we honor the past and the progress that has happened over the last 100 years.
And Charles, part of that was, he said exactly what you said yesterday, which is you have to take ownership and you have to do it on your own. Right.
That was obviously for me probably the best part of the speech. I didn't like the idea of talking about clean energy and healthcare reform in that particular setting. To be quite frank with you, I mean, that's not getting to the core of the matter. You know, we can have healthcare reform and clean energy. That's not going to change the situation within the black community. Other than that, you know, obviously hammering home responsibility, I think is so important. Accountability is so important, and also education. And not just, by the way, it's not about book education. It's not about a degree, but it's about being curious and seeking opportunities. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen a rappers interviewed. Almost every one of them, when they say, well, why do you rap about violence and things like that? What do they always say? Well, that's all I know. You know what? You know, we talked about Harry Potter the other day. When J.K. Rowling was sitting at her kitchen table, she didn't know really about demons or sorcerers. She went to a world outside of her physical limits. And I think we need more of a culture of curiosity, not only to learn, but to appreciate things so that we can expand our horizons. And I think if you can do it mentally, then you'll be able to do it physically.
You know, Marshawn, before I get your reaction, I want you to take a listen to this because it speaks to what Charles had to say. This is a little clip from what the president said last night.
We've got to say to our children, yes, if you're African American, the odds of growing up amid crime and gangs are higher. Yes, if you live in a poor neighborhood, you will face challenges that somebody in a wealthy suburb does not have to face. But that's not a reason to get bad grades. That's not a reason to cut class. That's not a reason to give up on your education and drop out of school. No one has written your destiny for you. Your destiny is in your hands. You cannot forget that. That's what we have to teach all of our children. No excuses.
Marshawn, what do you think about that?
Yes. I thought he was dead on. Let me first say that I think what the president did last night was quite genius in that he focused not only on reality but responsibility. The reality of the matter is you will face challenges, but it's not the challenges you face, it is how you face them, and we must face them together. There were several things that he touched on last night, and I'm somewhat appalled that Charles would say that we shouldn't be talking to African Americans about health care reform and we shouldn't be talking to African Americans about energy reform. Because if you want individuals to expand their horizons, you have to talk about issues that aren't being talked about. There are opportunities for jobs and innovation. There's opportunities for business ownership in those industries as well for minorities. And so we need to understand that. Financial literacy is important. Government responsibility is important. Personal responsibility is important. And I thought that he touched on all of those things while also acknowledging the fact that he didn't just get here as President of the United States on his own. He stood on the shoulders of individuals like W.E.B. Du Bois and Thurgood Marshall. So he also acknowledged the process of progress and also laid out a game plan for how we can continue to go in that direction.
Marshawn, let me just interrupt because since you were appalled, all I'm saying is that even if we, let's say tomorrow morning, every black person in Harlem had health care, free health care, and we were breathing clean energy, that would not change the core problems in the hood. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying. That was a political stunt that should have been somewhere else. It wasn't appropriate in my mind for that type of event. I don't think that you need to promote this stuff everywhere you go. I think the key is what's going to save the people that he's talking to, and that's not the key right now.
Well, the reality, though, Charles, is that there are multiple pieces that contribute to the problem. The government has contributed to the problem by turning an eye to regulation. Deregulation of the healthcare industry has contributed to a number of people not being able to afford it. Single mothers in the hood, as you like to call it, can't afford health care, can't afford child care, and still have to work multiple jobs, 2 and 3 jobs, just to keep food on the table. That contributes to the overall efficiency of individuals, everyday working families.
Why do you sidestep the real problem, though? Why would you keep, this is what bothers me so much, is like, this gets back to accountability. Okay, I was talking to a friend the other day, ironically, a friend of mine in Harlem, and I said, what do you think about this Chris Brown thing? And she said, well, the media played it up a lot. Huh? The media played it up. This man beat up a black woman, and her first response was that the media played it up. We can't keep saying we're messed up, but they're messed up. I think at the end of the day, somehow we got to focus on the core, to get our act together, to be responsible,
and
accountable, and then we can attack the greater problem.
Charles, I don't disagree with personal responsibility. I think the solution, as the president outlined last night, is the equivalent of a 3-legged stool. And that stool has 3 legs that are important. The first is personal accountability and responsibility. He touched on that first and foremost. You and I debated it yesterday, but the reality is an individual needs to be responsible for an individual's development. No one's disagreeing with that. At the same time, you can't ignore the responsibility that the government has, and you also can't ignore the responsibility of the private sector. Fair pay, equal opportunity with employment and hiring. There is a responsibility that all 3 of those pieces play. And I know you just want to focus on one, but that's what's got us into this situation. The government turning a blind eye to deregulation.
You're listening to this.
Marshawn and Charles, I want to say, I think what the president did was genius, as you put it, Marshawn. It was a balance, because we do have to take personal responsibility, but we also have to be engaged on issues that we typically are not engaged on. Folks are typically not politically engaged in policy making, and so to talk about healthcare reform or the other issues that are at the forefront of not just the African American community but the U.S. population in general, these are things that we have to tune into. The overhaul of our financial system and all of the issues that the president had to address. I think that was an appropriate audience to share those matters with.
All right, Marshawn, I'll give you the last word.
Now, there's one thing that was Well, thank you very much. There's one thing that I wish the president had focused more on. He did focus on jobs, which is important. He focused on affordable health care. He focused on housing and also education and training. But we have to focus on job ownership and entrepreneurship. America is great because of innovation, and those are the areas that African Americans, minorities, and really all Americans right now can really take advantage of is entrepreneurship and ownership, and that's really what we have to focus on.
I agree with you 1,000% on that.
All right, guys, we will leave it there.
I'm so glad we agree.
Great conversation, guys. I thank you all three, and Marshawn and Charles, thanks for coming back to discuss it. DaRayl, thanks for being here.